Turning next to Ukraine, where President Volodymyr Zelensky has signed a new law aimed at boosting Kyiv's ground forces. The mobilization law is set to take effect next month, and it's meant to keep eligible men from dodging conscription. This follows a law which Zelensky signed 2 weeks ago to lower the age to enlist from 27 to 25, and comes as Ukraine has been struggling to fend off advances by Russia. Charlotte Hughes reports.
It's a move aimed at ramping up Ukraine's troop numbers as Kyiv presses ahead with its grueling counteroffensive against Russia. After receiving the green light from lawmakers last week, a bill overhauling mobilisation rules has been signed into law by Volodymyr Zelensky. It hardens punishments for draft dodgers, increases payments to those who volunteer, and requires men to ensure their draft details are up to date with the authorities. Controversially, though, a clause that would have enabled soldiers to leave the military after 3 years of service was excluded. According to lawmakers, demobilisation is set to be covered in a separate bill. But for now, long-serving soldiers have no clear timeframe for when they may return home.
People need to know what they're doing. If you were told that you were serving till 2025, you'd know that if you survived, you'd be going home. If people can't make plans, they get depressed and they start making mistakes.
More than 2 years after Russia's invasion, Ukraine is outnumbered and outgunned by Moscow's forces on the ground. Last week, Ukraine's army chief said that the situation on the Eastern Front had worsened and that Russian troops aim to take the town of Chasiv Yar in early May. It comes after Russia captured the city of Avdiivka in February, where some residents nearby are still reluctant to leave.
I don't want to leave yet. I want someone to help me get my documents. They're covered in rubble. We don't have money, not a penny. There's no pension, nothing.
As well as grappling with a shortage of manpower, Kyiv is facing delays in much-needed aid from Western allies.
Well, funding for Ukraine is taking a central role as the Republican leader of the U.S. House of Representatives fights to hold on to his job. Speaker Mike Johnson has introduced legislation to decouple aid for Ukraine and for Israel. Many hard-right Republicans have come out against continued funding for Ukraine and are threatening to oust him. For more on this story, let's cross to our correspondent in Washington, Fraser Jackson. So, Fraser, help us understand where we stand when it comes to U.S. funding for Ukraine. The Senate passed a package that was never considered by the House. Is this the same one Johnson is now putting forward?
Technically, no, but in effect, almost yes. The $95 billion aid package that was passed by the Senate has sat in the House for 2 months, with Johnson pushing it down the line and kicking the can down the road. But it seems that given the weekend's attacks by Iran on Israel, that now the Speaker really has been pushed to action, as it were. And he's basically repackaged that deal into 4 standalone bills that he will be putting on the House floor. There's also a bill which will include sanctions on Iran, but interestingly, there's nothing in there about national security at the border with Mexico, and that was one of the main reasons that Republicans gave for not giving their support to that original bill that came down from the Senate. So they are likely to vote on these next 4 bills by the end of the week. However, the text for those bills was meant to come out on Tuesday, but so far there has been nothing that has come out of the Speaker's office. So a vote by Friday could be dubious. However, things can move quickly in the House, at least when they want them to, at least. Some Republicans now are calling for those 4 bills to be united as one package to then be sent to the Senate, which some Democrats are arguing, well, that's exactly what we tried to do 2 months ago, but hasn't been done. The White House has been previewed about these few bills. Johnson spoke to President Biden on Monday, and John Kirby on Tuesday said, quote, "It does appear at first blush that the Speaker's proposals will, in fact, help us get aid to Ukraine, aid to Israel, and needed resources to the Indo-Pacific for a wide range of contingency there." That, of course, being that bill on Taiwan. Now, Biden says he needs to study these bills a bit more before giving his approval, but ultimately Johnson is going to have to decide whether his tenuous grasp on the speakership can survive bringing these bills to the floor.
Well, yeah, speaking of exactly that, there have been some calls for Mike Johnson to step aside as Speaker from members of that hard right coalition. Fraser, where do we stand on that?
Well, the main one is Marjorie Taylor Greene, who most people will know she's been hanging a motion to vacate his speakership over his head for the last couple of weeks, and that gained a slight bit more traction on Tuesday when one more Republican senator, who is the senator for Kentucky, Thomas Massie, said that he would support that movement. However, Johnson says he's not going anywhere, he's not stepping down, and most vitally probably is that most Republican senators don't have any appetite to vacate the speakership. They saw the mess that happened with Kevin McCarthy and the numerous times it took to get Johnson into the speakership. That now less than six months ago means that they are unlikely to want to do anything like that again. Jim Jordan, himself one of the people who put himself forward for that speakership, said, "We don't need that, no way, we shouldn't go through that again." Now, they have made sure, though, they're making sure now, the Republicans, that opposition doesn't grow because their raise within majority comes to just one seat at the end of this week as one of their colleagues steps down in the House. So a real trying time for Mike Johnson as he tries to thread that needle.
Yeah, that would ensure a lot more chaos, I think, in the House of Representatives. Okay, our correspondent in Washington, Fraser Jackson. Fraser, thanks as always. Good to see you. Well, it's day 2 of Donald Trump's